Hi everyone, this story is called Bingerella by Brianna, Fiza, and Sophana. Once upon a time, in the land of DSM-5, there lived a young girl named Bingerella. Bingerella lived with her evil stepmother and her two evil stepsisters. Her father went on a business trip so he could support his beautiful daughter and family. Bingerella was forced to cook and clean for her evil stepmother and stepsisters while her father was away. They expected her not to eat, but when she cooked, she would eat really fast to the point where she felt an uncomfortable fullness. Her evil stepmother and evil stepsisters caught her one day and made fun of her from then on. "No wonder why they call her Bingerella," one stepsister said while laughing. "I've caught this girl doing this every week for 3 months. Imagine how disgusted your father would be," shouted her stepmother. What they did not know and did not understand is that Bingerella was in such distress from her father leaving her and not knowing what she was put through from her evil stepmother. One day the whole town was buzzing about the king and queen having a ball. It was time for their prince to find a bride. Every young lady in the land was invited to come and dance with him. Maybe if they dressed nice and did their hair, the prince would fall in love with them. At Bingerella's house, she had to do more work on top of being depressed and not being able to stop binging. Her evil stepmother was even forcing her to make gowns for her evil stepsisters. "Do you even know how to make a dress? This is disgusting," screamed one stepsister. "Can you hurry, or do you need to go and stuff your face with more food?" laughed the other stepsister. "But when can I?" Bingerella started to say when her evil stepmother barged in the room and said, "When can you do what?" "When am I going to be able to make my own gown for the ball?" she said sadly. Her stepmother and stepsister started laughing in her face, and her stepmother said, "Who said you are going to go to the ball?" Bingerella, confused and upset while watching as her stepmother and stepsisters got ready and rushed to the ball. Ever since her father left, she felt numb and sad. Emotional eating is a disorder in which people equate food with warmth, strength, positive emotions, or some other purpose other than supplying fuel to their bodies. When they are physically complete, they can eat to fill an emotional void and indulge in mindless eating. That's what Bingerella does. She started to finish her chores fast so she could make something to wear for the ball. When she completed everything, she made her own dress with the help of her little friends. Bingerella was excited to go, but she realized she had no way of getting there. Her and her animal friends decided to make their own carriage by using anything they had available. Not too long after, she got to the ball, only to be found by her evil stepmother and stepsisters. They were jealous of her and her beautiful dress, so they tore it apart and started yelling mean things to her, like "Go home and stuff yourself with food," and "You look disgusting," making Bingerella cry. Moments later, her dress was torn up and everything looked like a mess. Bingerella sat down and cried while having extra food in her carriage, so she forced it down fast because of how upset she was. She ate so much while she was crying to the point where it made her feel even worse. Shortly afterwards, while feeling horrible about herself, someone appeared out of nowhere. Bingerella was too upset to notice, but her animal friend saw a person that fit the description of a fairy godmother. Getting her attention, she explained to Bingerella that she is her fairy godmother and she's here to help. Cinderella is summoned by the fairy godmother, who requests a pumpkin, mice, and rats. The pumpkin is transformed into a coach, mice into horses, and the rats into grooms and footmen by the fairy. Bingerella then transforms into a beautiful, shimmering ball gown with glass slippers, completing the fairy godmother's miracle. Her fairy godmother explained the rules to her, and the most important one was to make sure she came back before midnight. This is when everything changes back to normal. Bingerella agrees and hurries into her carriage. She is heading to the prince. She looks beautiful and is glowing from within, but is anxious and has an uneasy stomach from her binge eating. She tries to put this past her and focus her main intent on the night ahead. As she arrives at the ball and steps 1 foot out of the carriage, no one recognizes her. All heads turn. Even her evil stepmother and stepsisters are questioning who this new beautiful girl is. As everyone is socializing, it is announced that the prince is ready to meet each lady for an introduction bow. Each of the ladies quickly lined up, not hiding their jealousy and competition for one another. Bingerella was quickly pushed to the back, but this did not matter to her. She kept patient and graceful as she waited in the shadows. Bingerella watched as her sisters made a fool out of themselves. The prince showed no interest. The prince continued to show no interest for every single lady. His eyes quickly went from looking exhausted to mesmerized by Bingerella. He walks up to her, bows, and kisses her hand. He is smitten from the first minute and chooses to dance with her. Do we know her? The prince seems to know her. The sisters continue to bicker. Wait, there is something familiar about her, said the stepmother. Before they could figure it out in the moment, Bingerella and the prince had taken off to continue dancing. The orders the Grand Duke to make sure the romance goes without a hitch. The Duke prevents anyone from interfering as Bingerella and the prince are wandering the palace grounds. The two instantly fall in love. It's love at first sight. Bingerella is astonished with how the night has turned out. She has completely lost the horrible feeling in her stomach and forgotten all about the rules her fairy godmother has put into place. Everything is perfect, but this is when the loud sound of the clock striking 12 abrupts their night. It's midnight. I must go, she states to the prince as she frantically gets up and motions towards the exit. Why? No, I don't even know your name. How must I find you? The prince states. I must go, she said. The prince tries to catch up to her, but it is stopped by a large crowd of ladies trying to get his attention. This is when the Duke begins trying to catch up to Bingerella. He almost does when she drops her glass slipper running down the stairs and turns back to grab it, but doesn't have time as he will catch her, so she continues. The Duke picks up her glass slipper and she jumps into the carriage without any hesitation, riding quickly away from the palace as everything is turning back to normal. The glass slipper is the only clue the prince has to finding out who Bingerella is. He swears he will marry this girl and begins on a mission the next morning, insisting every lady tries on the glass slipper. The next morning, Bingerella's stepmother finds out the news and gathers her two daughters, insisting that they must make this glass slipper fit. They still don't have a clue that it is Bingerella's and order her to list a chores in preparation for the prince's arrival. As he comes into the home and is greeted by everyone except Bingerella, she is in the shadows of the room, scrubbing the floor. It is obvious the glass slipper did not fit those of the sisters, no matter how hard they tried to fit it on. The prince sees Bingerella from a distance with her back towards him. You must try it on too, the prince states. This is when Bingerella turns around and they both automatically knew. She is nothing but a maid. She wasn't there, the stepmother continues. She's disgusting. You would not want her. She starves herself, then throws up all her food. She is not fit for you, prince, the sisters chant in. The prince ignores these horrible comments and moves the evil stepmother and sisters aside. These comments affected no way of how he felt. He helps Bingerella up as she is embarrassed from what is just said and at a loss for words. He slips on the glass slippers. The slipper, it's a perfect fit. In the background, the sisters and stepmother continue trying in every way to stop the situation, but it's too late. The two are in each other's arms, and she whispered in his ear, "You saved me." They lived happily ever after. The end.